The casino was alive that night, full of lights, music, and loud voices. Everyone looked rich, dressed in shiny clothes, laughing and shouting over the sounds of slot machines and clinking glasses. People were playing poker, rolling dice, and celebrating wins with drinks in their hands. It felt like a festival of money and luck. Among the crowd walked a man who looked different. He wore simple clothes, just a black t-shirt, jeans, and a cap pulled low over his face. Dark sunglasses covered his eyes, and he walked slowly, calmly, as if he wasn't in a hurry. Most people didn't notice him at first. One man, a guest in a golden suit, bumped into the quiet man near the bar and didn't even say sorry. The man just smiled politely and moved aside. He didn't argue, didn't complain. He looked around the casino, like he was trying to understand the place. He didn't carry bags of chips, didn't flirt or laugh like the others. He looked calm, gentle, like he was from a different world. That man was Keanu Reeves, but no one knew it yet. He walked past a group of tourists taking selfies and didn't stop. He wasn't there to be seen. He didn't act like a star, didn't wear designer clothes or show off watches. He just kept walking, quietly. A waitress walked by carrying a heavy tray full of drinks. She looked tired. Her name tag said Maria. She smiled at everyone she passed, even though her eyes looked sad. Keanu moved out of her way with a kind nod. She smiled at him, surprised by his manners. Most guests treated her like she was invisible. Near the blackjack table, Keanu stood and watched the game for a moment. He wasn't there to play. He was watching something else, something deeper. A man at the table was throwing chips wildly and laughing too loudly. That man was big, bold, and loud. He had a golden watch, a diamond ring, and a voice that filled the room. He was shouting at the dealer, making jokes, bragging about how much money he had. Other people at the table laughed, but some of them looked uncomfortable. They laughed because they didn't want to be on his bad side. Keanu stood still and watched quietly. The loud man noticed Keanu for a moment and said, "Hey, who let in the janitor?" The people around him laughed again, louder this time. Keanu didn't react. He just gave a small smile and looked away. The loud man returned to his game, proud of his joke. Keanu walked toward the bar and sat down on a simple stool. He didn't order champagne or an expensive drink. He asked the bartender for water. "Just water, please." The bartender blinked, nodded, and served him a glass of cold water. As he sat, Keanu watched everything. Not just the games or the money, but how people acted, who showed kindness, who didn't. That's when he saw Maria again. She was carrying another tray, this time. Someone bumped her by mistake, and her tray fell. Glasses shattered on the floor, and the drinks splashed everywhere. The loud man stood and pointed at her. "What's wrong with you? Can't even carry a tray?" The crowd turned and watched. Some laughed. Others stayed silent. Maria looked down, her cheeks red with shame. She bent quickly to clean the mess. Keanu stood up slowly, but didn't move toward her yet. He just watched carefully. His eyes were serious now, but still calm. No one helped Maria. Not even the guards. Not even her co-workers. Keanu walked over to a corner near the poker room and sat again. He took out his phone and typed something. Maybe a message, maybe just a note. He wasn't angry, but something in his body language changed. His hands were no longer relaxed. They were resting on the table, still and strong. The energy around him began to shift, but still, no one knew who he was. Two young men nearby looked at him and whispered, "Hey, doesn't he look like—" "No. Can't be. Why would he be here?" Keanu sat silently, letting the moment pass. One security guard, noticing him near the VIP section, started walking over. He didn't recognize the man sitting quietly with a glass of water. "Sir, this area is for guests only." The guard said sharply, "You can't sit here unless you're playing." Keanu looked at the guard with calm eyes. "I'm just watching," he said politely. The guard didn't like the answer. "You need to move, sir," he said again. This time louder. People began to watch again, turning their heads toward the voice. Keanu stood up slowly. "Of course," he said softly. He didn't argue, didn't raise his voice, but those around him began to feel something strange, a tension in the air. Like something big was coming. He walked away from the VIP table, toward the general area, but now a few people started to whisper, "Wait, is that him? No way. It looks like Keanu Reeves." Still, the music played, and chips clicked on tables. But the quiet man was no longer invisible, not to everyone, and very soon the entire casino would fall silent, because they would all realize who he truly was. And what he was about to do next would change everything, forever. The poker table was the loudest place in the whole casino. Bright lights above it made the chips shine like treasure. A group of rich men sat around the table, laughing loudly. Some were in shiny suits, wearing gold watches, big rings, and sunglasses even indoors. One of them, the loudest and most arrogant, was the same man who had earlier shouted at the waitress. His name was Marcus Black, a famous businessman known for showing off. He didn't play cards for fun. He played to be the center of attention. With every hand he won, he shouted, "Easy money," and threw chips into the air. His voice echoed across the room, and many turned their heads to see what the noise was about. But Keanu Reeves sat at the far end of the room, quietly watching. He still wore his cap low and his sunglasses on. A glass of water in his hand, nothing more. Marcus didn't notice him. He was too busy entertaining his friends. Two young men stood behind him like bodyguards, clapping at everything he said. Across the table from Marcus sat a nervous young player. Maybe his first time in a casino. His hands shook while holding the cards. Marcus noticed it and leaned forward with a smile that wasn't kind. "First time, kid?" Marcus asked loudly. "Don't worry, I'll go easy on you." The young man gave a shy nod, trying to smile, but everyone could feel his discomfort. The dealer passed the cards, and the game began. Marcus laughed with every move, acting like he owned the room. He tossed his chips with force, pointed at the young player, and said, "Let's see how long your pocket money lasts." People nearby laughed, not because the joke was funny, but because they wanted to stay on Marcus's good side. Some people laughed nervously. Others looked away, embarrassed. At the bar, Keanu Reeves watched all of this. He didn't smile, didn't frown, just watched, silently. The young waitress, Maria, returned with a clean tray and forced a smile as she walked past the poker table again. Marcus saw her and snapped his fingers. "Hey, where's my drink?" he barked. Maria hurried over. "Sorry, sir, I'll get it now," she said politely as she turned around. Marcus muttered loudly, "These girls are lucky to even work here." Everyone at the table heard it, but no one said a word. Keanu heard it too. He slowly stood up from his stool. His face was calm, but his jaw tightened slightly. He walked slowly toward the edge of the poker floor, close enough to hear everything but still unnoticed by most. One of Marcus's friends leaned over and whispered, "Hey man, I think that's Keanu Reeves." Marcus laughed. "The actor? Here? No way. What would a guy like him be doing in my casino?" The friend kept looking. "I'm serious, he looks exactly like him." "Then let's find out," Marcus said. A smirk on his face, he looked over at Keanu and raised his voice. "Hey you waterman, you lost or something?" The room got a little quieter. People started to look. Keanu didn't react right away. He took one more sip of water, then looked up. Slowly, "I'm just watching," he said calmly. Marcus chuckled. "Watching? This is a VIP table, my friend. You need chips or a reason to stand there." Keanu gave a small nod. "Understood," he said, and began to walk away. But Marcus wasn't done showing off. "Hey, come back," he said louder. "Tell me something. What's a guy like you doing here without a suit?" Keanu stopped, turned around slowly, and looked at Marcus. "I'm not here to impress anyone," he said simply. That short answer made people whisper more. A woman nearby whispered, "That's really Keanu Reeves, I'm sure of it now." One of the guards standing near the table stepped forward and said to Keanu, "Sir, you need to keep your distance from the guests." Keanu didn't argue. "Of course," he said, moving slightly back. Maria came back with Marcus's drink. Handing it carefully, Marcus took it and dropped a single coin on the tray. "Don't spend it all in one place," he joked cruelly. Maria gave a weak smile and walked away. Trying not to cry, Keanu watched her leave, then looked back at Marcus. He didn't say a word, but something had changed in his eyes. Marcus laughed again, looking proud. "I guess he's nobody after all," he told his table. "Just another fan who got lucky and walked in." Keanu turned and slowly walked back to his corner, sitting quietly again. But now more eyes were on him. Some people whispered. Others checked their phones to confirm his identity. It was slowly spreading, the truth that Keanu Reeves was really here. But still, he said nothing. He waited, calmly, quietly, watching, because deep inside, he knew something more important than fame was coming. Something that would teach a lesson, not through shouting or fighting, but through silence, respect, and action. And the people who laughed now would soon fall silent. Very soon, the game would change. Not just the poker game, but the game of pride, kindness, and respect. And Keanu would play it his way. Keanu Reeves sat quietly near the edge of the poker floor. His hands were resting on the table, his water untouched now. His eyes followed the people in the casino, but his face stayed calm. There was no anger, no loud reaction, just silence. Most people still didn't know who he really was. They just saw a quiet man in simple clothes, but the atmosphere was beginning to change. Some whispers had started. Some guests looked at him twice, unsure. One of the casino guards named Ryan had been watching Keanu for a while. He was a young guard, tall, with a trimmed beard and a sharp look. He wanted to prove himself, wanted to be noticed by the manager, and now he saw an opportunity. Ryan walked over to Keanu, standing tall, his hands on his belt. "Sir, this area is for VIPs only," he said in a firm voice. "You're not allowed to sit here unless you're a player." Keanu looked up at him calmly. "I'm not bothering anyone," he said softly. "Just watching. That's not the rule," the guard replied. Already a little annoyed. "You need to move to the lounge or leave this area." Keanu gave a small nod and stood up. His movements were slow and respectful. "I understand," he said again. But at that moment, a second guard named Malik came over. He was older and more aggressive. He had seen Marcus, the rich businessman, laugh earlier and now wanted to show off too. "What's the problem?" Malik asked Ryan, while eyeing Keanu. "Just removing this man from VIP space," Ryan said. Malik looked Keanu up and down. "He doesn't look like he belongs here," he said loudly. A few people turned their heads. Curious, Keanu still didn't speak. He stood straight, but said nothing. Malik stepped closer. "Let me see your pass." "I don't have one," Keanu answered simply. "I'm just here to relax." "Then you don't belong here," Malik said sharply. "Let's go." He reached out and grabbed Keanu's shoulder. Not roughly, but without respect. That's when everything changed. The moment Malik's hand touched Keanu, the room shifted. Something invisible, but powerful. Keanu gently took Malik's hand off his shoulder and stepped back. His face stayed calm, but now his posture had changed. He didn't look like a quiet guest anymore. He looked like someone in control, someone dangerous without being violent. "Don't do that again," Keanu said quietly. His voice wasn't loud, but it felt strong. It made both guards freeze for a second. Just then, a woman near the bar dropped her glass, and the sound of it hitting the floor echoed in the silence. Everyone looked up, and more eyes turned toward Keanu and the guards. A few guests gasped. Someone said, "That's him. That's Keanu Reeves." Marcus, sitting at the poker table, heard the name and stood up quickly. "Wait, what?" he said, walking toward the scene. Guests pulled out their phones, whispering, recording, within seconds. The energy of the casino shifted, from loud and flashy to confused and tense. Ryan stepped back, nervous now. "Wait. Are you really Keanu Reeves?" Keanu didn't answer the question. He looked at Malik, still calm. "I asked you nicely," he said. And I'm not here to cause trouble. Malik's face turned red. He stepped back too, suddenly unsure. Both guards looked at each other, embarrassed. Marcus reached the group and looked at Keanu with wide eyes. Oh wow. I thought you were a nobody, he said with a fake laugh. My mistake. Keanu turned to him slowly. You treated the staff badly, he said in a low voice. That wasn't a mistake. Marcus opened his mouth but no words came out. For the first time that night, he had nothing to say. The crowd around them was now completely silent. Even the music from the speakers seemed quieter. Maria, the waitress, stood in the distance watching it all. Her hands were shaking a little. She didn't understand what was happening, but she felt it. Keanu looked around, then back at the guards. I think it's time I leave, he said. But before he could take a step, a man from the crowd called out, No, don't go. More voices joined in. You're amazing. Please stay. You're the real deal. People now recognized him, not just the actor, but the kind man who didn't fight back, who didn't shout or act proud. He had stayed calm while others had been cruel. Keanu looked at the crowd, smiled gently, and raised one hand. He didn't speak, but that small wave was enough. The guards stepped back quietly. Marcus stood frozen, unsure what to do. And the whole casino, once filled with laughter and noise, stood in total silence. They had judged him by his clothes, by his quiet nature, by what they thought he was. But now, they realized the truth. He wasn't just a guest. He wasn't just a man with a cap and sunglasses. He was Keanu Reeves. And with just one moment of calm power, he made the entire casino go quiet. Not with a fight, not with anger, but with respect, and everyone felt it. Keanu Reeves stood quietly in the center of the casino, surrounded by silence. It was strange just minutes ago. The place was filled with loud voices, laughter, and music. Now, everything had changed. No one moved. No one spoke. People just watched him, trying to understand what had happened. Marcus, the rich and arrogant man, stood near Keanu with a strange look on his face. His fake smile had disappeared. His eyes were wide, his mouth slightly open. He had just realized who he had been mocking. All evening, Keanu didn't raise his voice. He didn't demand attention, yet the whole casino was watching him now. Not because he was a celebrity, but because of the way he handled everything. The two guards who had grabbed him earlier stood frozen, unsure what to do. One of them tried to apologize, but no words came out of his mouth. Keanu didn't even look at them anymore. Instead, he turned and walked slowly toward the bar. His steps were calm, graceful. People moved aside without him saying a word. They made a path for him, as if guided by respect alone. He reached the bar and stood in front of Maria, the young waitress who had been insulted and humiliated earlier. She looked shocked, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to stay professional. I'm sorry for what happened to you, Keanu said softly. His voice was gentle, warm. Maria blinked, unsure how to respond. She had served hundreds of guests in this casino, and most of them didn't even look at her face. And now Keanu Reeves was standing in front of her, speaking kindly. It's okay, sir, she said, trying to stay calm. I'm used to it. No. Keanu replied, you shouldn't be. With those few words, something shifted in the room again. A few guests looked down, ashamed. Others whispered quietly, their hearts touched. Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out a black wallet. Inside was a card, sleek and heavy. He placed it on the bar in front of her and said, This is for you. Maria looked at it with confusion. Sir, I can't accept money. Keanu smiled slightly. It's not just money, he said. It's an education fund. A small step toward whatever future you want. She picked up the card and read the name of the organization written on it, one that provided full scholarships to hardworking people in service jobs. People nearby started murmuring in disbelief. Is he really giving her a scholarship? One person asked. That's incredible, said another. Maria covered her mouth with her hand, tears filling her eyes. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything, Keanu said gently. Just promise Me'll never let someone like him make you feel small again. She nodded quickly, wiping her tears. The whole room had gone even quieter. No one was laughing now. Marcus, who was watching from a distance, looked completely out of place. For the first time in years, he wasn't the center of attention. His money couldn't help him now. His power meant nothing. He walked forward, trying to act cool. "Hey man, I was just joking earlier," he said, chuckling nervously. "Didn't mean anything by it." Keanu turned to face him. His face was calm, but his eyes were serious. "You said things that weren't jokes," Keanu said softly. "You embarrassed someone who was just doing her job." Marcus looked around, realizing no one was laughing anymore. In fact, many were shaking their heads at him. "I didn't know you were here," he said quickly, trying to fix the moment. "That's the problem," Keanu said. "You wouldn't treat someone kindly unless you thought they were important." Marcus opened his mouth, but again, no words came. Keanu gave a small nod, then turned away. He didn't yell. He didn't insult anyone. He simply spoke the truth. The power of that moment was louder than any shout. He walked slowly across the casino floor, passing tables and machines. People moved aside again, some clapping softly, others whispering words of thanks. Phones were still recording, but no one dared to interrupt him. As he neared the door, one man called out, "Why are you leaving so soon?" Keanu turned, gave a small smile and said, "Because I've done what I came to do." Another voice shouted, "What did you come to do?" Keanu paused and looked back at the waitress Maria, who was still holding the card tightly. "To remind people," he said, "that kindness is free and more powerful than money." With that, he stepped through the casino doors and disappeared into the night. No bodyguards, no camera crew, no noise, just quiet footsteps and a lasting message. And inside the casino, people stood in silence. Not because they were told to, but because they had just witnessed something real, something rare. They had laughed at the quiet man. They had judged him by his clothes, his drink, his silence. But now they knew. He wasn't just a guest, he was Keanu Reeves, and that night, he changed everything, not with fame, but with grace, courage, and heart. After Keanu Reeves gave the scholarship card to Maria, the young waitress, the entire casino seemed frozen in time. No one was laughing. No one was cheering anymore. The flashing lights and spinning roulette wheels still moved, but the energy in the room had changed. Keanu stood tall but calm, like nothing he did was special. He wasn't trying to show off. He didn't care about applause or attention. He only cared about doing the right thing. Maria was still holding the card with both hands. Her eyes were wide, full of shock and tears. She had worked in that casino for 2 years, dealing with rude customers and long hours. Never once had anyone shown her this kind of respect. People nearby whispered among themselves, "He gave her a scholarship. Did you see that? That's the real Keanu." A few workers who had been cleaning glasses behind the bar came forward quietly to stand near Maria. They looked at Keanu like he was some kind of guardian angel, but Keanu didn't stay by the bar for long. He turned and began walking slowly toward the main floor again. He passed the poker tables, the slot machines, and all the shiny gold that had once seemed so important. As he walked, something interesting happened. People started clapping, not loudly, but slowly and respectfully. One person began, then two, then a whole row of guests. They weren't clapping because he was a movie star. They were clapping because of the way he treated someone who was always ignored. Keanu didn't stop walking. He just gave a slight nod as he passed by them. Marcus, the rich man who had insulted Maria earlier, stood near his poker table, still holding his drink. His hand was shaking now, and not from cold. His friends had stopped laughing too. One of them whispered, "You messed up, man." Marcus tried to smile and say, "It was just a joke." But even he didn't believe it anymore. He looked at the same people who had cheered for him earlier, but now their eyes were different. They weren't impressed by his money anymore. Keanu walked up to one of the cleaning staff, an old man with gray hair who was quietly mopping a corner. He tapped the man gently on the shoulder. The man turned around surprised. "You've been here long?" Keanu asked softly. 10 years, the man replied, blinking slowly. "Why?" Keanu reached into his pocket and handed him something small, a silver coin with a star on it. The man looked at it in confusion. "What's this?" Keanu smiled. "It's a good luck token. My grandfather gave it to me before my first big film." The man gasped. I can't take this." "Yes, you can," Keanu said, placing it in his hand. "You've earned it more than I have." Again. The people around him watched in silence. Some even wiped away tears. Keanu turned and kept walking. He didn't rush, didn't act like a hero, but to everyone watching, that's exactly what he was, one of the younger casino workers, a man who had only started last week, walked up to Maria and asked, "Was that really him?" Maria smiled through her tears. "Yes, and he's even better than the movies." She looked down at the card in her hand again, still unable to believe it. A soft ding came from someone's phone nearby. Keanu's moment had gone viral. A guest had posted a short clip of the scene online, and it was already getting thousands of likes and shares. People began showing the video to each other, whispering words like hero, class, and legend. And still, Keanu just walked, nodding kindly to staff, even helping one man who had dropped a chair to pick it up. The manager of the casino finally came running out from the back, his face pale with shock. He had heard what happened only a few minutes ago. He stopped Keanu just as he reached the main entrance. "Mr. Reeves, I'm so sorry," he said breathlessly. "My staff didn't know who you were." Keanu looked at him with gentle eyes. "That's not the problem," he replied. "They shouldn't treat anyone like that." The manager nodded quickly, embarrassed. "You're right, sir. I'll speak to them." Keanu gave him a small smile. "Don't just speak, teach," he said. "Show them what respect looks like." The manager could only nod again. Lost for words, Keanu reached for the door, then paused. He looked back at the crowd, at Maria, at the old man with the coin, and at all the people who had been silent when it mattered most. Then he said something simple, but unforgettable. "Be kind to the ones no one sees," he said. "They're the ones who carry the world." With that, he opened the door and stepped out into the night. The moment he left, the room didn't return to normal. It felt different, softer, more real. The people inside the casino had come for games, drinks, and fast money, but they had witnessed something far more valuable. A man who reminded them that true greatness isn't loud. It's quiet, humble, and kind. And on that night, when the whole casino stood still, Keanu Reeves didn't just walk through the room, he changed it. Forever, inside the Grand Casino, people were still in shock. They had come for fun, games, and excitement. But instead, they had seen something unforgettable. The man they had ignored, some even laughed at, was none other than Keanu Reeves. But it wasn't his fame that changed the room. It was the way he acted. The quiet way he stood up for the waitress, the kind words he spoke, and the simple truth he shared. People had clapped for him earlier, but now the clapping had stopped. Not because the moment was over, but because everyone had gone quiet. They were thinking. Marcus, the loud rich man, sat back down at the poker table. He didn't look so confident now. He stared at the cards in front of him but didn't play. His fingers tapped on the table, his eyes lost in thought. His friends didn't say much either. They were the kind of people who followed power and money. But at this moment, they were unsure who to follow. Keanu had walked out, but his presence still felt strong inside. It was like he left something behind, something that couldn't be seen, but was deeply felt. Maria, the waitress, stood behind the bar holding the scholarship card in her hand. She kept looking at it, as if afraid it might disappear. A few coworkers came to her, asking questions, but she just shook her head with tears in her eyes. "Why would he do this for me?" she whispered. "He doesn't even know me." The older cleaner with the silver coin sat on a stool, holding it in his hand like it was gold. "He gave this to me," he said softly to a younger worker. "I'm never losing it." Nearby, a young couple who had filmed part of the moment posted the clip online. The title read, "Keanu Reeves silences a casino with pure class." Within minutes, the video started to spread. Comments poured in. "Respect. This is why we love him. A real man." One worker turned to another and said, "He didn't yell, he didn't threaten, but he shut this place down with just a few words." The casino manager walked quietly through the main floor. His face was serious now. He wasn't thinking about profits or games. He was thinking about what Keanu had said. "Don't just speak, teach." Those words repeated in his mind again and again. He saw how his staff had treated people, how some had looked down on workers. Like Maria and the janitor, he called the head of security to his office and said, "From now on, we treat everyone with the same respect. I don't care if they're rich or poor, famous or unknown. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," the guard said, still embarrassed from what had happened earlier. In the break room, some employees sat quietly, sipping water or tea. They didn't talk about money or tips. They talked about Keanu. "He saw everything," said one man, "even when no one else did. He noticed when Maria dropped the tray," said another, "and he helped her when no one else would." One girl smiled. "He made Marcus look so small, and he didn't even try." At the same time, outside the casino, a few guests stood together, breathing the cool night air. "Did you see the way he handled it?" a man said, "like a true gentleman." "I felt ashamed," another woman replied. "I laughed when Marcus made fun of that poor waitress. I shouldn't have." Inside, the casino lights kept blinking, and games continued, but the mood was not the same. There was something new in the air, something better. Keanu's quiet lesson had made people look at themselves. Marcus finally stood up and walked toward the bar. He stood in front of Maria, trying to find the right words. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I was wrong." Maria didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then she looked up. "Yes, you were." He nodded slowly and walked away, not expecting forgiveness, but knowing he needed to face the truth. For the first time in years, Marcus felt small, and it wasn't because of money. It was because he saw what real strength looked like. Not the kind that comes from chips or cards, but the kind that comes from heart and character. The guests in the casino were now more polite, more gentle, some even tipped better, not out of guilt, but out of respect. The workers stood taller. They smiled more, knowing someone had stood up for them. Maria placed the scholarship card inside her pocket carefully, like it was a treasure. And it was, not just because of the opportunity, but because it was a symbol, a reminder that someone saw her, respected her, and believed in her. All because one man refused to stay silent, refused to let pride and money win, and instead showed the power of kindness. That night, even after Keanu had left, his message stayed. The casino wasn't just quieter, it was better. Because when one man chooses to do the right thing, he gives others the courage to do the same. And that's exactly what Keanu Reeves did. Without shouting, without violence, he made the whole casino go silent, and made their hearts speak louder than ever before. Later that night, the security room inside the casino was unusually quiet. Several guards sat around a small screen, watching the footage again and again. The video showed the exact moment when Keanu Reeves took the guard's hand off his shoulder, spoke in a calm voice, and gave the scholarship card to Maria. One of the younger guards whispered, "I've never seen anything like that before." Another nodded. He didn't get angry, didn't shout, but it felt like he controlled the whole room. The head of security, a serious man named Logan, rubbed his chin. "We treated him like a nobody," he said slowly, and he turned out to be the most important person here. One of the guards pressed a button and saved the video file. "People need to see this," he said. At the same time, in the guest area, several people had already uploaded short clips from their phones. The videos quickly spread online. The title of one post read, "Keanu Reeves silences a casino without saying a word." Another said, "He was just watching, then Keanu changed everything." Within a few hours, the video started going viral. Thousands of people liked, shared, and commented. Some even cried while watching. Comments poured in from around the world. "This is why Keanu is different. He's not just a good actor, he's a good man. I've never seen power used so gently." Meanwhile, back in the casino, guests were showing each other the video clips. They pointed at the screen and smiled. "I was right there," someone said. "I saw it happen." Maria, the waitress, was still holding the card in her apron pocket. She sat in the break room now, her shift finally over. Her hands were shaking, not from tiredness, but from the emotions that were flooding through her. Across from her sat two other waitresses. One of them said, "You're going to school now, Maria. That card is real." Maria nodded slowly. "I never thought something like this would happen to me," she said. "I just wanted to finish my shift and go home." "Now your life's about to change," her coworker said with a soft smile. Maria looked at the small scholarship card again. It felt heavy now, not in weight, but in meaning. It wasn't just money, it was proof that someone believed in her. Someone who didn't know her name but saw her worth. In the hotel connected to the casino, a group of guests gathered around the lobby TV. The news had picked up the story. The headline flashed across the screen. "Keanu Reeves teaches the world a lesson in kindness." A reporter shared what had happened in the casino, the mistreatment, the silence, and the gentle way Keanu had handled it all. Some guests in the hotel lobby clapped softly after watching the report. In the casino office, the manager sat in his chair, watching the news as well. His eyes were tired, but thoughtful. He picked up the phone and made a call to corporate. "We need to change some of our training," he said firmly. "Our staff needs to know how to treat every guest with respect, no matter what they wear or drink." The person on the other end replied, "Is this about the Keanu Reeves situation?" "Yes," the manager said. "And it's not just about him, it's about how we treat people. Period." A few hours later, in the early morning light, a group of employees stood outside the casino, waiting for their rides home. They were quiet, but their hearts were full. One of them said, "This place feels different now." Another added, "He didn't just walk in and leave, he left something behind." Maria came out holding a small bag and the card in her hand. She looked up at the sky, the stars still glowing, and took a deep breath. "I think I'm going to start applying to schools," she said softly. "I'm not afraid anymore." The old janitor who had received the silver coin earlier stood beside her. He looked at his coin again and said, "Some people have money, others have power, but the rarest people have both and choose kindness." One young man asked, "Do you think he'll ever come back?" Maria smiled gently. "Maybe not," she said. "But he gave us something better than a return visit. He gave us a moment we'll never forget." By morning, major news outlets had picked up the story. Social media was flooded with hashtags like #KeanuKindness, #CasinoMoment, and #RespectLikeReeves. Even celebrities started reposting the video, praising Keanu's quiet strength. But Keanu himself? He had already left the city. No interviews, no public statements. He simply got in his car, rolled down the window, and drove under the stars, away from the flashing lights. He didn't need fame. He didn't want applause. He had done what he came to do, not to play cards, not to gamble, but to remind people that sometimes one moment of kindness can echo louder than 1,000 words. And so, the world watched the video again and again. Not because it was shocking, but because it was beautiful. Because in a place built on luck, Keanu Reeves gave them something better, hope, and that hope would stay long after the cards were shuffled and the chips were gone. Outside the bright lights of the casino, the streets were quiet. A cool wind moved through the night air as Keanu Reeves walked alone. His cap was still low on his head, and his hands were in his pockets. There were no bodyguards with him. No cameras chasing him, no spotlight following him. He walked like a regular person, calm and peaceful. But behind him, he had left something powerful. Something that could not be touched but could be deeply felt. Inside the casino, the workers were still talking about him. Even the customers were speaking in softer voices. Something about that night had changed everything. Maria, the young waitress who had received the scholarship card, sat on the employee bench outside. Her eyes looked up at the sky, and a soft smile appeared on her face. She still couldn't believe what had happened. "I always thought I was invisible," she whispered to herself. "But someone saw me." Her hands held the card close to her chest. It wasn't just a piece of plastic, it was a second chance, a new future. The janitor, Mr. Raymond, the man who had been working at the casino for 10 years, stood beside her with the silver coin in his hand. He hadn't stopped smiling since. Keanu gave it to him. That coin was his grandfather's. He said quietly, "He could have kept it, but he gave it to me. That means something." "Yes," Maria nodded. "It means he really sees people, not just faces, but hearts." In another part of the city, the news continued to spread all over the internet. People were sharing clips and writing about what had happened in the casino. But Keanu had disappeared. He wasn't answering messages, wasn't posting on social media. He had come and gone like a quiet storm, powerful but gentle. The manager of the casino called an emergency meeting that morning. All staff members were asked to sit in the main conference room. He walked in, holding a paper in his hand, and said, "I want to start by saying I'm sorry." Everyone was surprised. It was rare to see him speak so openly. "I watched the footage last night," he continued, "and I realized something. We failed." There was silence in the room. "We didn't fail because we didn't recognize a celebrity," he said. "We failed because we judged a man by his clothes, his drink, and his silence." He looked at the security guards. "And we failed Maria and Mr. Raymond, who come to work every day with quiet strength." The staff looked down, some nodded slowly. Others wiped away tears. "Starting today," the manager said, "this casino changes." He introduced new training, new rules, and a new code. Everyone, rich or poor, would be treated with the same respect. Across the country, news outlets were sharing the story under headlines like, "One man, one moment and a lesson in kindness. Keanu's quiet power silences the world." At a nearby school, students were shown the video by their teacher. The teacher asked, "What can we learn from this?" One little girl raised her hand and said, "That being nice is more powerful than being loud." In homes, offices, and even in other casinos, people were talking about Keanu Reeves, not because he was a famous actor, but because of how he behaved. When no one expected anything from him, he didn't wear fancy clothes, he didn't bring cameras, he didn't shout or demand anything. He saw a young woman in pain, an old man ignored, and he did something about it. Quietly, in the days that followed, donations poured into the scholarship fund written on the card he gave Maria. Hundreds of people gave money so other workers like her could have a chance at a better life. Maria received letters from strangers telling her how her story gave them hope. She held back tears as she read them during her lunch breaks. And Keanu? He never made a statement. He didn't post a photo, didn't ask for thanks. He simply went back to his quiet life. But he had left a mark behind, a deep one. People who had once believed in power and money now believed in something else: respect, kindness, and quiet strength. One night, a child walking with his father pointed at a man crossing the street and asked, "Is that Keanu Reeves?" The father smiled and said, "Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But you know what matters?" "What?" the child asked. "Act like it is," the father replied. "Treat every person you meet with that same respect." That night at the casino had become more than just a moment. It became a message, a quiet message that said, "You don't have to be loud to be strong. You don't have to be rich to give. And sometimes, the greatest power is to walk away with grace." Keanu Reeves had walked in as a silent guest, but he had left as something more. Not a hero in a movie, but a hero in real life. And long after the games continued, long after the lights flashed again, people still remembered the man who made the whole casino go silent, not with anger, but with love, and that silence, it still speaks today in hearts all over the world.